I never imagined a YouTube instructional video on how to smoke ribs would result in catching a thief, but that is how I caught HOA President Lisa Pimbroke sifting through my locked shop as if it were her playground. My phone live feed caught her wearing yoga pants, drinking a green smoothie, prodding at my welding tools with bolt cutters. It wasn't a pesky neighbor. It was a deliberate incursion by a woman determined to drive me out of Willow Creek because I'd gotten there. My land wasn't even in her HOA, but that never stopped her. She'd gone too far, and I was on the verge of drawing a line back, one that would ignite a reckoning that she'd never be able to forget. I'm Ethan Morrow, a 52-year-old retired mechanical engineer who traded city sounds for a peaceful piece of ground in Willow Creek, a sanctuary of tall pine trees, a large garage to hold my welding endeavors, and a driveway long enough to drown out the world. Years of blueprints, sparks, and deadlines behind me, I thought I'd finally found peace. Next, 2 days after my arrival, Lisa appeared, brunette pixie cut bobbing, clipboard held like a club, insisting I take down my business signs. Halfway through the coffee, still wearing slippers, I inquired which signs she was referring to. She directed me to little plaques that offered my custom metalwork. I informed her my land was illegal HOA territory. Her smile expressed, "We'll see." Then she made war, petitions to annex my land, anonymous complaints about the zoning to the county, even a call to animal control alleging my steel wolf sculpture was dangerous. Inspectors descended, laughed, and departed. I thought she would burn out. But Lisa didn't crave obedience, she craved domination. It began small. Tools gone missing in my garage, a torch never cleaned, a toolbox drawer left open, a prototype motorcycle fender lying unwrapped. I initially blamed myself, but suspicion crept in. Lisa's campaign was heating up, and I wasn't going to let her tamper with my sanctuary. So, I set up a high-def surveillance system, cameras in plain sight, streaming live to my phone and laptop, every frame time-stamped and encrypted. 3 days after, I got a ping on my phone while doing that rib tutorial. Movement in the garage. Figuring it was a raccoon, I jumped to the other feed, and there was Lisa, fearless as ever, sneaking through my workshop door. She poked at my welding table, grabbed a plasma cutter, shook her head like she was critiquing my life's work, and continued snooping. Anger seethed, but I am not a yeller. I am a builder. Blueprints and blowtorches, precision and patience. Seeing her trespass on my territory kindled a flame. Confrontation would not suffice. I required something grander, something uncontestable. I did not call the sheriff or rush into her residence. I schemed. Welders exist in two worlds, planning and action. In the span of 2 nights, I authored a steel cage, not permanent, not against the law, but a keep to ensnare her pride. The prize? Her spotless black BMW SUV, parked with precision, a rolling shrine to her vanity. To make it happen, I had to get her to park on my land. I left my side gate ajar and set bait, pretend documents marked HOA litigation evidence and confidential audit strewn across my workbench, under the surveillance of a camera. Lisa's curiosity was her undoing, and I hoped on it. Sure enough, Thursday evening, she fell for it. Her BMW drove just over my property line, and she sneaked in, flashlight, gloves on like a wannabe cat burglar, snapping pictures, cursing. I stood in my living room, sipping ginger ale, my heart pounding. When she went further into the garage, I activated a remote switch, letting the door fall halfway down. She screamed, dropped a piece of paper, and ran for the door. I let the door close behind her, giving the illusion of a glitch. She didn't know her BMW was the car I'd taken until she spun around, saw me on my porch, and locked up. I waved, just like a spring breeze. She glared, threatened to come back with her HOA crew, and stormed off, leaving her car. That's when I put on the suit, cranked up the welder, and went to work. I'd pre-cut the cage panels, painted them to blend with Willow Creek's approved look, and installed them into gravel plates. 2 hours later, her BMW was surrounded by a shiny, matte gray steel rectangle, bolted shut, unmovable without heavy machinery, a great ego check. I welded a sign to the front: public art installation, unauthorized vehicle in private workshop zone. Cameras rolling, lights on, morning waited for Lisa. At dawn, Willow Creek buzzed. Neighbors stared at the caged BMW, some taking pictures, others mumbling in amazement. I sat on my porch, drinking coffee, watching the spectacle unravel. Lisa didn't show up until 9 a.m., striding down the street like a warlord, phone filming, anger emanating. When she spotted the cage, her shriek could have shattered windows. She stormed my driveway, blaming me for vandalism, theft, and sabotage of our community. I gestured toward the property line marker, then to the camera over my garage. "Want to see your break-in again?" Her face went white. She shrieked about calling the sheriff. I held out my phone, saying perhaps her shaking hands would cause her to drop hers. She refused, storming off, promising revenge. By lunchtime, I'd posted the video on the web, captioned, "HOA president breaks in, so I caged her BMW." It reached 60,000 viewers in hours, comments labeling it the BMW bust. Memes went wild. A local news blog covered it. Lisa paced back and forth outside the cage, screaming into her phone, threatening lawsuits. Teens asked me if it was a Banksy prank. I told them no, but appreciated the tip of the hat. The sheriff pulled up, drinking a cola, one I recognized from a gate I'd welded on his ranch. I presented the footage to him. He turned to Lisa and asked if she had permission to be in my garage. She launched into safety checks. He interrupted her, nodding toward the camera. "Want to see yourself trespassing?" She would not watch it, complaining that he was biased. He laughed, told her she was lucky I hadn't filed charges, and referred to the cage as a civil issue. Her vehicle sat on my property. On his way out, he asked if I could cage his noisy neighbor's ATV. I told him I'd think about it. Lisa sat on the curb, beaten but still refusing to apologize, recording a video with the claim that I was harassing her. It blew up, full of comments shaming her, and was quickly deleted. I knew she would escalate, but I was prepared. She filed a county complaint, claiming my unpermitted structure was dangerous. The inspector, not quite concealing a grin, scanned my surveys and video, then inquired about welding classes. A process server next dropped off her lawsuit, damages, defamation, emotional distress, with Reddit screenshots as proof of my harassment campaign. My attorney, an old buddy, howled with laughter until he wheezed, threatening a countersuit. Lisa mobilized HOA loyalists, taping up flyers with my fuzzy picture, calling me a threat to the community. I braced one for my workshop. Her supporters dwindled, board members resigned, fed up with her grudges. The video rose to millions. News outlets dubbed it the year's wildest property fight. I did a porch interview, cage and picture, explaining peacefully the trespassing reality. When asked why I didn't report her to the police, I replied, "Steel speaks louder than complaints." The quote became popular, featured on T-shirts by some guy in Texas. Lisa's threats dissipated. Her attorney fell silent. A petition removed her as HOA president, and her home went up for sale. But I wasn't finished. I sent her a $4,500 invoice for emergency vehicle encapsulation services, saying we could settle it in court with my video. She didn't answer, but her BMW disappeared overnight, probably at a high price to spare herself further humiliation. Next was her next trick. A drone flying over my property every day, hovering above my garage. I tracked it to her backyard, where she stood, smiling. Rather than grumbling, I constructed a scrap metal humanoid sculpture, arm up with a motion-activated flame that flared when the drone approached. It sent the drone crashing behind her fence. Her lawyer wrote an enraged letter regarding pyrotechnic assault. My lawyer replied with airspace regulations, and the drone ceased. The HOA, fearing Lisa's domination, reorganized, relaxing bylaws. Neighbors suggested making the cage a permanent art installation. It was subsequently relocated to the community park, reutilized as a pergola with a sign, "From the structure that taught us boundaries." Lisa's house sold quietly. She disappeared without explanation. Willow Creek changed. Complaint letters turned colorful mailboxes that dotted lawns. I became an unintended activist, giving a talk at a high school on civic defiance, my cage clip eliciting chuckles. Invites rolled in, art exhibits, panels, even a documentary. I turned down most of them, content to weld in my shop, now filled with orders for sculpture and gates. Strangers still nodded at me years later in the hardware stores, thanking me for holding my line. The cage was no longer there, but its memory lingered. A testament to the fact that when someone trespasses on your line, you don't have to yell. You only need skill, steel, and the courage to construct something that cannot be overlooked.